Hello, everybody. My name's Milan Starcic. Welcome to Freedom Rising, a podcast dedicated to empowering individuals on the journey to personal growth, lasting serenity, and freedom from addiction. Tune in and join the movement. Your journey to freedom starts here. You know you are welcome anytime. Hey, everybody. Anytime. Welcome to the 11th Recovery Freedom Rising podcast. We're here to grow in our journey together. I'm Milan Starcic, and this is my co-host, Kalem Moses. We're two souls on the path of recovery with a desire to expand our lives and experiences and share them with you. The topic today is service starts at home and practicing the principles in all our affairs. Could you explain what this means to you, Kalem, and why it's important?
Yeah, for sure. And actually, first, before I do so, I just want to make a quick shout out and apology to whoever really offended. But I realized that me being in the podcast, that I was actually breaking a bit of traditions with just becoming more aware of what these traditions mean and what the purpose for them, and just becoming more aware of that, I realized why it was being talked about. So I am
To someone who's new and doesn't understand, can you explain what tradition you feel like you were violating unknowingly and then how you want to modify?
so the tradition. You're gonna make me. Let me see
Oh,
here.
yeah, I am. Oh, yeah, I am. Yeah.
I'm gonna
We're
look
going
it
to
up.
be thorough and awesome.
Yeah, that's awesome. Let me just grab the traditions here. So it is. So actually, my understanding was that it was tradition for each group should be autonomous except in matters affecting other groups or NA as a whole. If I'm not mistaken, that was one of them, um, and then tradition 11, which is the bigger one. Our public relations policy is based on attraction rather than promotion. We need always maintain personal anonymity at the level of press, radio, and films. So for me, it's more about that one there. Um, when it comes to sharing on a podcast that is widely ranged and for the public and anybody who wishes to look into it, just keeping my anonymity um, as a person in recovery, as a recovering addict, not necessarily stating where I belong or different things like that. I feel is important. I think that's what that tradition is kind of speaking to is again the personal anonymity, right? It doesn't matter where I come from, where I'm at, or anything like that per se. Uh, it's just about speaking about recovery and what I want out of it and what I'm working for and different things like that. So yeah, it just became more aware of that tradition, more so tradition 11, like I said. Um, that this is like I guess a form of radio, right?
Hmm.
If we wanna put it that way. So it's just important to realize that I'm Caleb first and foremost, right?
Yeah.
I'm on a radio station. This is Caleb's story. This isn't
Hmm.
any specific program story or anything like that. So just wanted to point that out there.
And in agreement to what Caleb just said, for myself, this podcast is created to help enable and help people understand about recovery. I'm not promoting or demoting any organization,
Mm-hmm.
but I am promoting the freedom that rises inside you when
Mm-hmm.
you work your recovery towards that freedom. And
That's right.
I feel that, one of the greatest things about our current society is that some people who have recovery fever, like the group of me and co-hosts who are involved
Mm.
with this show and want to share their successes and their mentors and their experiences with people, that we have a platform to do it.
Yeah.
I'm not I'm not making a judgment or trying to sell anybody any certain organization or membership
Hmm.
to an organization, and nor am I trying to pull somebody from one organization and get them to go in another.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
100%. So, but on to our actual question that you
yeah.
had.
Mhm.
So, asking me service with family, and
Service starts at home,
yeah,
and practicing these principles in all our affairs. I feel that they're really interlinked, and not entirely, but there's a good Venn diagram of them.
yeah, absolutely. And actually, you know what? I'll answer that, but I have a question for you to start it
Yep,
out with.
sure.
So you picked the topic this
Yeah.
time. So what made you bring up that topic?
Well, okay, first of all, I had become accustomed and selfishly enjoying our daily interactions.
Mm,
And last week there was an absence, but when you
mm,
explained the reason for the absence, you know, um, I realized that it's also something that's important for a newcomer in recovery or anybody in recovery to be aware of, that not all service positions are inside an organization and a program. And
mm.
if you sort of think of like the like a Buddha or a Jesus in history, like these true noble figures, they were unilaterally in service to the entire world.
Mm,
And so that's, for myself, um I felt some internal conflict in one of
mhm,
the groups I'm involved in last week. And I also I do a lot for my parents who live on the property,
mm.
and definitely helpful to them and my family. And I just thought that it would be something that we could explore together over the next hour, because I feel that there's at least a conversation's worth of
Yeah.
time on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I,
100%.
I felt like, why wouldn't we want to talk about things that are relevant in our life, how we're
Mm.
managing them, how we're balancing them, and, maybe how we've neglected them at points in our life.
Yeah, that's a great conversation starter.
Yeah.
I'll answer your question now. For myself, I realized as I was getting really heavily serviced into the program that I'm into, um, in helping serving other recovering addicts and other people, right? I realized that I didn't realize it was actually God revealed it to me that I was neglecting the most important service that I can be of. And for me, that's my family, right? My wife and my kids are actually the most important service that I can offer, because that starts home, right here, right now, every morning when I get up, right? Like this is right in my face every day, right? And it's important that I understand that I'm to first be of service to them, and I get the opportunity and the privilege to be a father, to be a husband, right? And when I have an attitude like that, then I'm actually able to help help my wife, help my kids, because that's ultimately, that's what we're here for. When you think of these recovery programs, well, what you do in these programs, these meetings, these, whatever your these
Your step
things,
work.
your step work, it is all relational. It's all about relationships, right? And so what I'm doing in the program is very much tied to what's going on and what should happen in my home, right? If I'm trying to make that happen in the program outside of my home, but in my home it's not quite like that, guess what? I'm only trying to clean the outside of my cup, right? Not the inside of my cup. I need to clean the inside of my cup so that the outside of my cup is clean as well. It's not, it's overfull. I heard you say it the week before. It's overflowing, right? That's the place that I gotta be in is a place of service with overflowing love coming from after I serve my family, then serving everyone else. Because if I'm not, then I'm literally just there's a crack in the foundation, if you will.
I feel like it's almost like hollow service,
Hmm.
like where you're painting a people pleasing picture of
That's right.
service.
Yeah.
You know, like ultimately, your family and your home, that is your lifelong commitment to service.
Yeah.
You brought the children into the world. It is therefore your duty to serve them to become the human beings that they can. You've
Hmm.
committed to your wife to be your wife, if that's your, if that is your commitment level. But even if you're partners, if if you've if you've agreed and made love for her to bear your children, and you're saying I'm going to be there as the father, that's that's a commitment,
Hmm.
and it makes us dishonest not to fulfill those commitments. Like it brings in the principle of honesty with ourselves,
Yeah.
with those we love, with the
Yeah.
people around us about who we are.
Hmm. No, absolutely. That's a great point because, and it's also, here's the thing. Sorry. I'll tie on to when you said practicing these principles in all of our affairs. So here's the thing.
You need some water.
I do. One second here.
Yeah, just take a gulp. We're pro water and throat clear.
Okay, so like I was saying, practicing these principles in all of our affairs. So there is nothing like practice when it's personal. It's easy to practice your principles before all your affairs when things aren't as personal. But there's nothing more personal than your family. There's no, like, honestly, on my end, like there's nobody who could push my buttons better than my wife can. And
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
Family cycles are the hardest ones to break in recovery, really. And why? Because you have muscle memory for them.
Hmm.
They say you do something 10 times, it becomes instinct.
Yeah.
Well, how many times were you a jerk? It only
Yeah.
takes a few years to add up to 10,000.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, I'm living with them every day, like waking up every day with them, right? Like there's bound to be things, like you said, muscle memories. And not to mention, like, if I'm willing to really be of service, because being of service and I remember reading it in one of the literature books. But being of service will reveal to you the defects of character that can be within you. But you may not know that you have those or realize you have those defects until you become of service, because then you're applying yourself to other people, which is then bringing all of that stuff to light, right? And so being of service is a huge part of recovery for me because it is revealing defects of character that I've been blinded to. Then I'm faced with either I deal with it or I stuff these and I stop service. Well, I don't want to degress, I want to progress, right? So I'm going to, address those things. And honestly, your family is one of the best areas for that because, like you said, it's very much become like a muscle memory. It's become tender, if you will, right? It's every single day, all day. It's like you're working out those muscles, and they become sore. So it doesn't take very much for for those muscles to become sore, and you realize, hey, I've allowed a resentment in there that and all these different things just start surfacing because I'm of service, because I'm actually I'm not. I'm not making myself distant with them. I'm actually pressing in. And the more I press in, the more all of these things are going to surface. And it is a beautiful um it is a beautiful process of acknowledging where your shortcomings are. Well,
And awakening to who you really are.
That's and learning to accept, like
Mm,
we've talked
mm,
about,
yeah.
learning to accept the fact, okay, so I've allowed myself, I wasn't guarded enough to allow myself to have build these resentments and unforgiveness and bitterness and all these things. And you know what? There isn't anything I can do about it as for that it happened. It
Mm,
happened, right? I
yeah.
accept that. Accept that I have these. Now I can move forward. Now I can actually work towards taking those and releasing them and healing. And you can tell how well a person is doing. I got to be choosy with the way that I word this.
Maybe
Okay.
how well I'm doing, like in a me sense.
Yeah,
Yeah.
how you can tell how well I'm doing by the engagement of my family. Right? If my family is restless with me and everything like that, chances are I'm not doing the best. Right? Now, I understand there's definitely things about my family that, you know, they're going through, and at a sense it wouldn't really matter how I'm treating them because it's their thing, right? Their attitudes or whatever.
Mm,
But essentially, it's not so much you looking at seeing how they're reacting to you, it's you reacting to them, right? And you can
yeah.
always tell, right? Am I yelling? Am I screaming at my kids? Am I being very short? Well, if those are all things that are present and you can see those, then there's stuff going on within me that is um, causing that all to surface, right? And so just by becoming aware of that is a huge part, because then if I can become aware of that, then I can start to address those things. So,
Yeah, like I think very little of what we thought was surface or service in our addiction truly was. It 90% of what we would have considered service or acts of generosity
hmm
were fraught with expectations
hmm
and people pleasing.
hmm
And like, how many times have you gotten mad at someone because you didn't get the little pat on the back and the thank you
hmm
for what you did? And that very need
hmm
means it wasn't an act of service.
hmm
And
100%.
I,
Yep.
I inside my resentment list, when I was in treatment there doing my first step 4, it was so much lack of acceptance of other people not acting in a reciprocal fashion.
hmm
That the expectation that there would be a different treatment of me if I provided a level of service, and um and a lack of acceptance for people of how they were because they didn't want to offer service or
hmm
weren't offering it to a level that was acceptable to my expectations.
hmm
And it really kind of tore me down to see that I really wasn't as nice and generous and helpful as I thought I was.
hmm
And, we have to, I think, we have to kind of rebuild from, that's why they tried to get you to do acts of service inside this program. Like, and quite often like repetitive ones because
Hmm.
they want you to just actually naturally start being helpful, you
Hmm.
know, and it when somebody like, you shouldn't need the pat on the back for hosting a meeting.
Hmm.
You should be hosting that meeting because you want to help other people in recovery. You
Hmm.
know, you shouldn't take a service position because, you want everybody to think you're a recovery wizard or whatever, like things like that. And I think that, gaining some humility and understanding truly where your defects and shortcomings were inside those service actions, and especially with your family, is
Hmm.
to be able to now turn around and just see of where you can be of service. My first 3 months, 6 months, and 9 months into this program, I spent those 3 days trying to do as much service as I could because
Hmm.
I didn't want my little brain to think, fucking awesome, Milan, you're fucking doing so good at recovery. Woohoo, let's have parade for Milan. And so I was like, okay, what do you want done around the house, your property, babe? Like I wanted to just try to be helpful that day to get
Hmm.
out of myself,
Hmm.
because whatever, I wasn't really sponsoring at that time. I wasn't like it wasn't like I could just go and host an extra meeting because it was my day, like, or something. But anyway, that was for me, it really pulled it into, realizing, hey, like I've got three older parents that live here.
Hmm.
My daughter just moved back, my wife lives here. There's a lot to do right here
Hmm.
for
Hmm.
people who I love, who need it, you
Hmm.
know? And the only accolade is knowing that they're going to have more comfortable days for the ends of their days.
That's good. And like there's something that just came to mind with me too is that as a as one who really practices and works towards my relationship with God of my understanding, um, he's also made it very clear. He's like, you know, I've called you for myself personally. Anyways, he's like, I called you to be a leader, but he's like, if you can't be a leader in your home, what makes you think I'm gonna say you're ready to be a leader outside your home? And it starts what he gives us. It's a privilege. Again, he gives us the daughter, the wife, right? The three parents, or three adults or whatever they were. um he gives me my wife, my four kids, right? It is a privilege to be of service with what he's given me. Then from there, if I'm faithful with what has been given on my plate right here, right ground zero, then it's moving forward with that. And he knows deep down that if I'm faithful to be of service wholeheartedly, like you said, right, not just in a way of manipulating to get something out of it, but wholeheartedly being of service to my family, then I can be more of service to the people outside. Even just, I think of it as like a bullseye, right? The bullseye is the very middle is your family, right? And then outside is your block. Then outside is your neighborhood, and then outside it just keeps getting bigger and bigger. But I think tying it to what you're speaking about, with Jesus and Buddha being the world service, right? To be a world service type deal, if that's what you really feel to be, you got to start from ground zero, though. It never
Mm.
started like that. It started from here and it got bigger, right? So that was something that came to mind, is that if I'm faithful with a little, uh, chances are I'll be faithful with a lot. And that's a huge thing.
And like One of my tattoos I got 3 years before I even entered recovery says, "I am grateful for the privilege to help and serve."
Mm,
And
awesome.
and that has been a part of my quest in my life even before recovery. But one thing is that we only can lead by example,
Hmm.
and our children are the finest example of that.
Mm,
You can
hmm.
be like, do as I say, not as I do,
Yeah.
and you're going to have kids that will never be honest with you,
Hmm.
because they'll just do the opposite the second you turn around, because you're living a duality in front of them. Like, you're
That's right.
literally teaching them how to live a duality. Whereas, it, it's harder to walk the right line, you know?
It is. Yeah.
And it's that discomfort though that brings us that growth,
Mm.
you know?
I think, and you know what? Just even thinking about it and thinking about our situation and whatnot in our home, I think there's yelling and stuff that happens towards the kids because there's a reality that if our kids are acting out in some type of way, where are they getting that from? Right? The chances are where are they, they're not with their friends or a bunch of things like that, right? Like they're getting it from us, right? And that's a hard pill to swallow.
Some
But
shame and
that
guilt comes along with that.
absolutely right. And so I come to realize like that's where a lot of the yelling comes from
Mm,
because it's frustration, it's shame, it's guilt because deep down we know that our kids are a shining example of how well we're raising them, how
yes.
well how well we're leading them, like you said,
Mm,
leading by example. And so our daughter, I'll be open and vulnerable with it. Our daughter is definitely a challenge, man. Um, one day, she's doing great. The next day, she's stealing $160 worth of chocolate from her school. So it makes it very challenging, right? And and the bottom line is no, I don't think she's not understanding or learning the stealing side from it, but it's the attitudes, it's the behaviors, it's those type of things that she's getting out of those who are leading her.
mm,
And just by that alone is causing an effect of stealing, right? And it is a hard pill to swallow when you have to sit there and go up to the principal and be like, yeah, I don't know what to tell you, right?
mm,
And it's humbling because you're like, okay, I got a lot of work to do. I got a lot of service because here's the greatest thing: to be service to your family starts if it if being service to a group of people starts with your home, starts with your family. Where do you think your service really starts from before your family? Yourself.
that's
If you
right.
can't serve yourself, you cannot serve your family. If you cannot serve your family, you can't healthily healthily serve other people outside of your family, right? So that's the key thing is like, oh, I got a lot of service to do here in my home. Well, what does that mean? Okay, well, I need to balance. I need to work on myself. More than likely do some
Mm,
steps because steps is how I do service to myself,
mm,
right? Cleaning up the wreckage, healing from the past, clearing out a lot of stuff that is causing these defects of character and different things like that. By doing that, then I'm openly able to serve my family better, right? By being loving, caring, kind, gentle, joyful, show them self control, those type of things. I can't do that if I got a pile of rubble or wreckage
mm.
in front of me, right? So, yeah, it's one thing that I've learned. And the fun thing is it's got to be a balance. I've One thing I've learned in this journey is that it is all about balance. And you know what? I came to realize I suck at balance. I cannot. I don't know how other people are, but for myself, balance is not in the equation at all for me. But that's one thing that I've learned to give over is you know I believe that God said where you're weak, I can become strong in your life, right? And so where I'm weak, He is strong. All it takes is me to admit it and accept that. And
Mhm.
just in this last little bit, since I've learned that and accepted that, I said, okay, I don't need to try to balance. I'm going to ask for the strength. I'm going to ask for God's strength and help to help balance all of this in my life. And by doing so, that's why, I've taken a break.
Mm.
I realized I was really diving deep into recovery, which is a great thing. I need that. I need the service towards myself. Here's the thing. My family also needs me to be of service as well. I can't just be absent from them for months on end or I got to be present. So it's about incorporating. Actually, for me, it's about allowing God to incorporate all these different things in my life in a healthy manner. And that's how for me, that's how you'll know it's God. Is that if it's all balanced in a healthy manner, then you know it ain't me because if it was me, it'd be all messed up, man. So, but I got a question for you now.
Okay.
Okay, so you were talking um, about checking your motives, and you came to a place where in your recovery you realized that your motives weren't right. What did you do to, I guess, fix that, if that's the right word, or even redirect your motives and rearrange them so they're going in a healthy direction rather than serving for yourself and your people pleasing and stuff like that? You were actually beginning to serve wholeheartedly. What did you do to help that?
So, for anybody who's new out there, in step 4, we do what's called a fearless moral inventory. And I love the word fearless because by the end, you will learn to fear less after that moral inventory. And so I feel that I delved as deep as I was physically capable of and mentally capable of at that time into that. And then step 5 was when we have that inventory for ourselves, for a higher power, and for we read it to another person. And then, um, that kind of shows you that you're not the worst person in the world. Somehow, being able to say those things in front of another person after you've written them down, it's different than you having a fleeting thought about that thing. That fleeting thought can be cycled into I'm a permanent shithead
Mm,
forever, but writing it down, seeing that, my part in that was, these specific defects, and then the lining up of those defects again, right? And like I said, mine were definitely expectations, intolerance, lack of acceptance of who people were. Like I would say that they were my 3 top ones. My sponsor says to me that, like people who are going to take like 2 to 4 months to do their step 4, it's really just stalling. It's stalling on the growth. If you can
mhm,
get your 3 strongest ones, that's enough to start moving forward because they're probably 95% of the problems in your life are from those top 3. Like
mhm.
Well, it was something I was talking about with someone yesterday, but like just because you can prove that you have all the defects on the defect list doesn't make you the most effective. You know, like that's an element of pride. Being the
Hmm.
best at something is pride, and being the
Hmm.
worst at something is pride. Like I've
That's
got the
right.
most defects. Look at me, need to be fixed. I'm the worst. Like, but anyway, so for me, that was my main ones. And then my friend Shannon, who actually I recorded an episode with yesterday, when I got to step 6, she had her list of defects out on a page, and then she had that defect and like an arrow over to the spiritual principle that you would be
Right.
living opposite for
Yeah.
that defect. and
Yes.
then and then so I made a page like that and laminated that for myself as well.
Mm. Mm.
So for my expectations, it was now just acceptance,
Mm.
like and real service,
Mm.
and for my intolerance it was tolerance,
Hmm.
and obviously my lack of acceptance was acceptance.
Hmm.
um so I was really specific about a lot of the instances inside that moral inventory. And so when I came home and started to have these interactions with my family, because really, like, that is, I stay home a lot. I
Mm.
either am home or working. And, I'm very much a homebody. I'm here either making music, doing podcasts, working on my computer for work, and I'm with my family. And so, it's not only starting my service at home, but it's also the most important part of my service
Yeah.
because it's 95% of my life.
Yeah.
And
That's right. Yeah.
the very first step in uh, um, getting rid of those improper motives for my service is my awareness. That awareness was from that step 4 to 6.
Hmm.
Now comes the really shitty part: stepping forward, failing, stepping back 4, self-loathing, clearing that self, getting some self-acceptance, stepping forward 1, falling back 3, stepping forward 2. Like it was like it's literally felt like sometimes I'm trying to run up a muddy hill,
Hmm.
But when I stop and look 14 months in the past, 14 months and 8 days today of who I
Nice.
was before I got anything in this program, before I even knew what the fucking program was.
Mm.
I was driving home last night with my wife and we were listening to yesterday's podcast, which I had never listened to one of them with her.
Mm.
So I got to decipher, different terminologies and stuff. And it's why I try to stop people at points when we're talking, because to somebody who's not in a program of 12 steps, there's really a lot of stuff we say that we take for granted that people know. Like
Hmm.
her and I had to pause the show so many times, but she's like, I can't even recognize that old addict person inside you anymore.
Yeah.
You
Beautiful.
know, and I'm not saying that to brag. I'm
Yeah.
saying that, you know what? I'm working my ass off,
Yeah.
and I might not be able to see it every day, but I'm not wearing the same shoes because I'm not walking the same walk.
That's right.
And
Good.
it doesn't come without a lot of uncomfortability. It
Hmm.
doesn't come without a lot of humility, of like admission of my part in those things. Like to me, that's like eating sand with a sandwich, but you're still hungry because you want that meal. you know, it
Yeah.
really is.
Been
And
there.
it it doesn't come without pain.
Hmm.
It doesn't, and I I've been scared a lot of times that I'm not gonna be doing the right thing. but at least knowing what I'm shooting for, like having a direction, in the 12 by 12 book, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where they correct the progress, not perfection, to
Mm-hmm.
progress towards perfection.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you can stand in a field and shoot an arrow in any direction, and one out of 360 degrees, you're going to hit something in a certain direction,
Mm-hmm.
But if you actually have a direction you want to aim at, there's a greater chance you're going to go towards that.
Yeah.
Like having a target inside, your principles is a fundamental thing of like going from acceptance to lack of acceptance. If you're
Yeah.
not pointing yourself in a direction, then you will likely do the wrong thing as often as the right.
Well, and they say there's that saying that not planning is planning for failure, right?
Or chaos.
Yeah.
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 Exactly.
It's yeah. I wanted to bring these two words into here because these are two things that I think um, that are very important into service and growing into service, more so even in your home, right? And actually, it's crazy. I realize how many people might actually not understand the difference between them. So there's consistence and persistence. So consistence is the act of repeating an action to build habits and cycles. It's about doing what is necessary to achieve a desired outcome. For example, you might be consistent with your statements or content or how you want to solve a problem. Okay, so that's consistence. Persistence is the act of continuing through challenges and setbacks. It is a state of mind that involves pushing through pain and roadblocks. Persistent people acknowledge external forces that might hinder their progress, but they keep on going. Um, the one thing that I kind of learned with that was a lot of time persistence is quite well defined as doing the things you don't want to do, right? When you got pain, when you got roadblocks, when you got things that just keep on piling up on you. For instance, when you have a family member that is going through depression, anxiety, all these different things that just seem to keep bringing setbacks or roadblocks, it can be very hard to be consistent to the point that you want to continue trying. And you might get the thought, well, what's the point? Like it like sort of like you were saying, like not being able to see that change, right? But other people may see that change easier than you do. Well, when we're in that place, it can be hard to be consistent because we feel the pain of having to push through and we may not want to. We don't want to continue pushing through that pain because it sucks. But that's where
Growth.
consistency changes into persistence, right? That you keep persisting through regardless.
So I would even throw it out there that consistence requires persistence. Like persistence doesn't require consistence, but
Yeah.
consistence requires
Yeah.
persistence.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Because at
Because
some point,
because the only way you're going to maintain that consistency
yeah.
is being persistent
Yeah.
throughout it.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Because you being consistent, maybe you're consistent for 2 weeks, but then all of a sudden you start getting roadblocks and you start having things happen. That's
Mm,
when you have to be persistent in
mm.
order to be consistent. Right. That's a good point.
I had a real example of this on Saturday. I was dismayed at some of the goings on inside a meeting that I attend regularly, and I let it push me out of the meeting on Saturday, and
Mm,
it's okay.
right.
For my own reasons, and I'm not dragging anybody else into the situation. For my own reasons, I had a lack of acceptance of certain things going on, and I removed myself from the meeting. I had
Yeah.
a half-finished song. I finished recording that song, and then I realized I'm like, I'm not going to let that situation affect my recovery. So I went on, the meeting finder,
Yeah.
and boom, I jumped back onto another meeting, caught that meeting, and maintained my recovery that day. And I feel that I used persistence to maintain my
Yeah.
consistence of
Yeah.
my recovery.
That's right.
Exactly on that. And, and practicing those principles in all our affairs ties into that,
Hmm.
because it's really easy to let that defect of procrastination
Hmm.
or or intolerance of those hiccups in life, or lack of acceptance of something not being how you have an expectation of it.
Hmm. Hmm.
Like, if we truly had no expectations and full acceptance, everything's groovy, man.
Yeah.
Like, there's
Yeah.
like,
It'd be weird. It'd
like,
almost be weird.
oh man, I feel like you'd be glowing. You'd
Yeah.
be
Yeah.
glowing at that
Yeah.
point. Like, you would be glowing with a serenity that you know that I would come and hug right away.
Yeah. For sure. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
No, that's a perfect example. Because that's just it with principles before personalities,
Mhm.
depending on where you're at. I hear it in the rooms that I'm in locally, and they're like, "Oh, these people make it really hard for people or principles before personalities." It's like, yeah, but that's where the persistence takes place, right? That's where you might not want to, right? And then they might hit a sore spot. They might hit some pain, like you were talking about those muscle spots, right? But it's persisting through there that helps the consistency.
And so then something that I've been knocking my head up against in the last week is when is like when is it practicing these principles in all our affairs, or having an incorrectly drawn boundary of allowing damaging events into your heart?
Mm.
Like there's a point where we can be trying to help someone,
Hmm.
and or they're expressing a semi-abusive toxicity in their actions.
Hmm.
And when is it being of service to home community groups, and when is it just incorrectly laying down a boundary that's allowing toxicity and abuse into your life?
Hmm.
That is just something where, man, I've been rolling that around for 6 days now.
Yeah,
It's inside myself.
yeah, and it's true. It's because it's even like I had the same type of question, but in a different form. That was basically right around the same area, right? It's like, okay, where do you begin to draw these lines of where it becomes too much or too little, right? Or where, like in this case, like you're saying,
Mhm.
where is it where you're practicing your principles and all of your affairs to where it's an unhealthy boundary that isn't placed properly?
Where is it selfish and where is it self-care?
Yeah.
Like it would be a lie to say that doesn't get hazy.
Hmm.
You know, like
And
life
abuse.
life is rarely black and white.
Yeah.
And our instinctual reaction, at least mine, is for shutdown. Like
Mm.
when I'm getting hurt by something,
Yeah.
It's shut down. And, my first sponsor said it. I said it yesterday, but I'm saying it again. Our feelings are real, but the facts they're based upon might not be real.
Hmm.
And it's like taking the time to step back and decipher whether we're actually getting hurt or whether we're just having a broken expectation.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, yeah. No, and that's, I think, like, with that being said, I think you draw a very important part, or important topic, that are we learning about what healthy boundaries are? Because that leads the question, how many people actually know what a healthy boundary is and where to place them, right? I'd be willing to bet that there's probably quite a few people in these programs, and if in these programs, more than likely outside of these programs as well, that don't know how to place a healthy boundary or even know what a healthy boundary is.
And, just because we may be on the cusp of learning what that is, I think more often than not, we have the expectation of other people to respect them.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that expectation is still an expectation,
Yeah.
you know? Like, and especially with kids and family members. Like,
Mhm.
we might want to change a million things about our personalities, and they might be really happy with their own.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
they might not see a problem at all.
Yeah.
And it's literally an expectation on our part to expect them to have growth.
Yeah. 100%.
Yep.
Yeah. No. That's a good question, though. I'll
Yeah.
probably think
So
about that.
I got service starts at home. It's something that echoes in my life as I clean up the wreckage of my past. Um, One thing that you know that I learned probably about a year ago from someone is that gratitude is an action.
Hmm.
So, if you're grateful it's a sunny day, just say no. I'm grateful it's sunny. That isn't a gratitude. That's an expression of you liking sun on the day. But the actual gratitude is to go outside and to smile at that sun and let it hit your face, and using service as an expression of gratitude. You love your house, so you go and you paint the railing that needs the railing
Hmm.
painted. You
Hmm.
love your wife, so you see that she needs a little more assistance some days with the kids, and you just take that off her plate, right? You love your kids, so you sit down and go over their math with them after school,
Hmm.
and maybe
Spend time.
play that little Tonka toy game that drives you fucking nuts, but you do it anyway. You know,
Because you love them
that's
and
right.
you're grateful for them. Yeah.
That's right. So a good way to I think this ties into that other question too that you asked me, is how to change your motives.
Hmm.
Is put aim your service as an expression of your gratitude.
Hmm. Start there, right?
Yeah,
Start it, because
yeah.
if you can start there, it can elaborate into bigger than that.
Like if you have something that you have to do, or that you're opting to do for service,
Yeah.
just going into it thinking, and I want to do this with them because I love them,
Yeah.
or
Just
I'm gonna drive them there because I have the opportunity to show them how much I love them by this action and taking my time from my existence.
absolutely. And even just tying it to, like you were saying, thinking about where to start service or do apply service is starting where you're grateful for. So, for an instance for that is not in the home, of course, but outside, is if you really enjoy, and I'm grateful that you have meetings that are open, right? That are open, and you're able to go there and get source and nutrition that you need for your recovery, then that's something that you can be of service to, is being sorry, grateful for that, is you get to be, maybe you open the doors, maybe you go and share, maybe, go do something towards that meeting being open, and that helps you serve from your heart. Like, and that's sort of like what I was, it kind of clicked with me when you were saying it like that. Because I mean, with my family, um, it's only like you said, it almost becomes like an obligation that it's something that I have to do. Right. It's not only something I have to do, it's something that I signed up for. Right. And for anybody that might might get a little bit bent out of shape about, well, I didn't necessarily ask for kids. Well, you did when you didn't use protection.
Or just
If you
having
want to get
sex.
service, yeah,
There's no birth control that's 1 million
100%.
percent.
Yeah,
So if you want to have sex, there is a chance you'll have children, and it's the least kept secret in the universe.
oh, 100%. Right.
Like
So,
like nobody got pregnant masturbating.
yeah, 100%. Right. So, and just understanding that you put yourself in that position. So here's the thing: nobody's gonna make that situation or that position better than you can. You're gonna be the one that has to make that situation or that position better. And that's been the one thing I've learned in these last month or two, is everything that I've been having a problem with, it is all my problem. It's
Yeah.
nobody else's problem. It's my problem. So what am I gonna do about my problem? About how can I make my problem better? Right? The rooms, in our local place, right? I share this quite often. Where I am locally, our rooms, the fellowship has been really, was down and out, and the unity wasn't great. It's like, okay, so that's my problem. That's a my problem.
Mhm.
It's not everyone else's. So what am I doing to help that problem? Right? Am I sitting here just complaining about it
Mhm.
and not putting anything towards it? Or can I go and I put time, energy, love into these rooms, show that I actually care, show my gratitude that there is a fellowship here,
Mhm.
you know, put that kind of gratitude to action. Now, next thing you know, boom, we have a home group. At the very least, we have a home group that is on fire right now, um, for recovery, and we're all working the steps. So we're all like, we're a lively bunch again. And here's the thing, what's amazing about that? That actually helps my problem a lot more than I thought, because now my wife might end up coming back to the rooms and sticking around, because one thing that it drove her out of the rooms was the exact same issue, that it wasn't, the fellowship wasn't as strong, the unity, all these things, they weren't up to expectation, as our old home was. But so now that we've gotten rid of the expectation and said, okay, what can I do to help this situation and be of service and be great and express my gratitude? Now, just by me working on myself, becoming more involved in the community, I'm now creating a place for my wife to also come and enter and be a part of, and see herself too again, if she's willing to. If she's and she said that she is willing to come and give it another shot. So, there's a lot to be thankful for the fact of what this program, of what these programs, help us learn. Right? understand that if I didn't have, you know, these steps, the literature, explaining these things, leading me into a relationship with God of my understanding. All of this is all balancing into me being a solution for the problems in my life.
Love, acceptance, and hard work
Hmm.
are threefold able to change our entire world.
Hmm. Absolutely.
And it doesn't come without painful self-reflection, humility,
Yeah.
and growing pains of change.
Yeah.
Not everybody wants a different Kalem because you might be the scapegoat for their action,
That's right.
and but taking ownership and being able to say, hey, I'm not who I was. I am who I am now.
Hmm.
Like literally my song this morning was about that,
Yeah.
who I am
Beautiful.
now. And it really, it, it's a, like moments of the past, can't hold me back,
Mm. Hmm.
from who I'm going to be now.
Yeah.
And it's, but without, you know, without that reflection that comes from doing that step work, and my sponsor said it to me the other month. He's like, it doesn't matter what kind of the language of the book is, because there's a lot of people who have controversy about the rewriting of some of these books with the
Hmm.
12 steps. And he's like, as long as I have my spiritual experience, he's like, I could care what noun, verb, or whatever you use. If you can guide
Hmm.
me to a spiritual experience, use whatever language you want,
Hmm.
you
Hmm.
know? And that's the thing about the steps, is that it's designed for us to go within to change the world without, because of our perception and
Hmm.
acceptance. And so, we're you and I are just wandering on this path and fortunate enough to find each other, to have someone to talk about with it.
Hmm.
Like,
Absolutely. Yeah.
like there's just one out of 100 people I meet inside recovery have the freedom rising inside them and are
Hmm.
wanting, the recovery fire, man.
Yeah.
Like I got recovery fever. I'm burning up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's setting the old the bush on fire, right?
Yeah.
You're spreading like wildfire. It is finding those phoenixes, like in the
Well,
backyard.
the thing is this is, I know from my own personal addictions, you don't get serenity and happiness right away. And like coming off of certain drugs, it's like almost impossible to have a positive feeling endorphin right away.
Hmm. Hmm.
So if we are experiencing considerable regeneration and relief in our lives, to me, that's one element of service,
Yeah.
is showing that it's possible to come back and have a
That's right.
life where we talk for an hour giggling like we're like a Seinfeld episode of recovery. Because why? Because we're having fun. Like,
Yeah.
but like we are literally able to have joy,
Hmm.
serenity, growth right in front of people. And
Yeah.
I can guarantee that I wasn't pretending anything on this show.
Yeah. No.
And I'm assuming you're not. It's
No.
either
No.
that or you're one hell of an actor, man. You should get hit Hollywood. But, but
Yeah.
like I think, I think we're really lucky.
Yeah.
I think we're really lucky to have caught the fire. And for me, I know it all happened for me because of the amount of effort I put in.
That's
If
right.
I didn't do all that hard work on those steps, it wouldn't have changed my life. My
Yeah.
life was not happy straight without it. And if I didn't keep coming to meetings, I wouldn't have continued to learn from other people. If I didn't have a great sponsor and then another one and just keep like where it looked like, oh man, I don't need a sponsor, a couple months on my own. But no, I pushed and said, no, you know what? I do need another sponsor. I do need someone to be guide me and mentor who's further along with me, who has something that I want. And it's real easy to go, oh, that's not working for me
Yep.
because I'm not working for it.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
like it really
That's a good one.
boils down to like practicing these principles in all our affairs. And
Yeah.
one of the spiritual principles is not procrastinating.
Hmm.
Like us not doing the right next thing at the right time.
Yeah.
It's not just doing the right next thing if I feel like it 5 years down the road.
Yeah.
By then, that moment for it to have actually had a positive effect on the world around me could be gone.
Mm.
You know,
Yeah.
like me putting that right solid step there for somebody to go up a set of stairs depends on me doing it before they take the step and fall on their face.
Yeah.
You know,
And it's cool because I was just thinking about you're talking about gratitude and you're expressing that you're grateful that, we have a couple of us that we can really just talk to for hours about recovery and have that fire. But we're expressing that gratitude by coming and doing a podcast,
by
right? That's the
exposing
expression
ourselves for others to see our weaknesses and our emotions.
and
Like,
our strengths.
remember where I grew up in Oshawa?
Yeah.
Two dudes talking about feelings on a podcast about what's going on with their family and their lives.
Yeah.
Like, that would have been a shit kicking.
Oh yeah.
It would have been
Yeah.
a shit kicking on the way home. Like,
Yeah.
and like it just shows that life changes and
Yeah.
people can grow. And like, don't let the past remind us of what we are not now. It's my favorite musical quote ever
Yeah.
from Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, man. And that it defines that are somebody different right now, and we can be whoever we want to be right now.
Yeah. It's
And
good.
it's not keeping ourselves in the boxes that we created by our past, by through our shame, through our guilt, and it's working those steps and getting rid of it.
Yeah.
So, I was so happy to see you again, brother.
Yeah.
I do have to wrap this up now.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But I'm at least hoping, even with the service to your family, maybe we can at least maintain a once a week thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, and even whatever, I'd be happy to make this our day and our time.
Yeah.
If that does work for you, I certainly love you like a brother, man, and
You too, brother.
I wish the best for you and your family through this process.
Yeah.
And do you have
Appreciate it.
anything final you want to say to everybody before I wrap it up?
Yeah. So, just speaking on that with the service towards family, um, I get it. It can be hard, and sometimes we may have family that we don't want to be around. I get that's very much many of our stories when we come into these rooms is that we want to be as far as away from our family as possible, but understand that that doesn't take the importance of serving your family first. That's how important it is. Service starts from your family. It starts from ground zero. And in that very center of that circle is you, right? So I want to encourage any friends, anyone that's watching this, if you are having troubles and you got thoughts saying, no, I am not going to serve my family, then maybe it's that we got to work on ourselves, go through some step work, clear some of that wreckage so that we can start accepting and becoming willing to be of service to our family. Because here's the thing, anyone that is in any type of programs, that any type of growth or anything like that, the whole purpose of us growing through the things that we've been through is to help pass it on and share it with other people, right? And I'm only going to do that as good as I am when I start from ground zero, sort of like you were saying. Don't let your service be hollow, because here's the thing, people can tell when service is hollow. Whether you want to believe it or think of it as being true or not, people, we can tell when the service is hollow. I could tell when my service was hollow, right? I'm not feeling right when I'm sitting there serving, the newcomer or someone else better than I'm serving my wife or my kids. Right? That's a hollow feeling. Right? So just to encourage you guys, step work helps, get us to a willingness, acceptance, exactly like you're saying, right? Pushing through those steps, persistence through those steps is what's needed for me to be of service for others. And, I just want to let you guys know, all of you guys, I love you all. And I pray that you guys see the type of recovery that we get to experience today. So
I love you all too. If you like what you've seen, please subscribe, share, and like this podcast. Help us get to 100 followers. We're looking for interaction with our audience, so you can please email recoveryfreedomrising@gmail.com or contact Milan, South Okanagan Starcic on Facebook with questions, topic suggestions, or just comments. We'd love to hear from you, and if you'd like a topic for Kalem and I to do, that would be wonderful. Just suggest it, and we could delve into it and come back to you with a great episode right after that. We're hoping to create slideshows of the freedom rising in your lives. Please send any photos of you flourishing in your life as a result of your recovery. Tune in next episode for more recovery fun. See you later, everybody. We love you.
We love you.
You are welcome anytime, any time of day.